Vora from Nerdy Optometrist. I'm sure we are all excited about this whole new conversation about PhD journey in United States. So I will now like to welcome our guest, and he's online. Very good, Zulfi. I'm happy to see that you're present. Okay. So how has day, night been for everyone so far? So while we wait for others to join and Keyur to accept and join the video as well, please note that you can ask questions. Hi Keyur, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I'm so glad we were able to do this. I know we've been going back and forth about this time and finally we are here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had some time with your busy schedule.
Yeah. It's finally the semester is ending, so fortunately I have some open time.
Wonderful. So while we'll give another minute or two for everyone to join, meanwhile, thank you everyone for joining. And hello, Khushbu. I'm just going to look out for some responses out here. And anyone and everyone who's joining, please feel free to ask questions throughout our conversation if you have anything to discuss. Right. So are you all set for the weekend? I always look forward to the weekend.
Yes, my room's a mess. I have to do a lot of laundry and cooking, so yes, I guess I'm all set for the weekend.
That's a US life. I think we should be also talking a little more about the reality.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So I think we have quite a few people online, and I also see your Ools team, Fakhruddin and Zulfikar join as well. So good job, guys. You're all always present, and I'm glad to see you guys here too. All right, and to all the others, welcome and thank you so much for joining. Perfect. So with that, I know you, I think, since our college days.
Yeah.
Because I passed out when you joined, but you're still my junior, so I knew you were around. So I know you, but I know many people don't. So I'll start with your quick introduction, and then we can go into this entire PhD process.
Sure.
And I already have the first question from OptKey24. What are the requirements for applying for PhD? Well, I would say we're going to get to that for sure. So keep sending in your questions, and I will be trying to ask all of them or most of them to Keyur, and we'll try to cover everything in this session. So this is exciting, Keyur. Even before we start the conversation, we have questions. All right. So first thing first, Keyur Savla, and to be Dr. Keyur Savla. I know him from Lotus, but yes, he did his bachelor's from Lotus in 2016, after which he was a faculty at Wavikar Eye Institute in Mumbai. And then he got accepted in the University of Alabama, where he's currently doing his PhD. He's in his 5th year, and he's doing his research under Dr. Andrew Pucker, working on multifocal contact lenses for myopia control. So the most hot topic with, I would say, best people in the industry. So good job, Keyur, and a very warm welcome. Thank you once again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on here. It's always good to help others in the same area.
Absolutely. So I actually want to understand, was this PhD always your dream, or is it something that you decided to pursue at some stage of your life?
So I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I was asked to draw what my career would be, and I drew a scientist. One, because it was easy to draw, but my picture of a scientist was someone with a test tube in a chemistry lab. So like that was my picture. And then after that, of course, I got into optometry, and we all do this capstone research project at Lotus. I did not know that there was anything further in research until almost my 4th year, wherein Vishwa, who was my advisor, Dr. Vishwanathan Ramasubramaniam, he suggested, that you can do a research PhD. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because it's in the US, who's going to pay? So I was like, yeah, I don't have that kind of money. No, who has money to go to the US and study for 5 years? So like if I had that kind of money, I would just stay in India and live my life happily, So he's like, oh, you don't need to pay anything. You just need to apply. All you need is like the application money. I was like, huh, okay. I didn't believe him. I did a little bit of my research. And then once I graduated, I was like, huh, this is something I should seriously consider. Uh, and so, yeah, that's how I got into research. So until like almost 1 year before graduation, I didn't know PhD existed in vision science or anyone could do this at all. So yeah, that's how I ended up being here.
This sounds very, very, I would say, very supportive to many people who are lost or who don't know. But I have to say, generations, I mean, I do say generations because I have passed out for quite some years now. I hate to admit it, but yes, I do know many students who are doing optometry. They already know what they want to do. So they are way more smarter in terms of they have their set plans. But I feel so good that, we are not the few ones who didn't know where our career was going.
Yeah, for sure. I had no idea that I would end up here.
So talking about your journey, you said you have done your bachelor's. Did you do your master's back in India as well, or no?
No, I did not. So I finished my bachelor's in 2016, and then I tried looking for like jobs. I'd worked in clinics, and my father is an optician, so I did like the optician setup as well. And I was not very happy. While I was teaching at Wavikar, I did enjoy teaching, but Wavikar did not have like a lot of research going on that at that point. They did not have students that far along. So I was like, okay, I need to do if I'm interested in research, which I was like, okay, I just need to do that. And I was too late for the application for masters, to be honest, by the time I decided that. And uh, then I was like, okay, I don't know if this is something I would need to do. And I asked Dr. Vishwa, and he was like, no, you should just apply. In the US especially, you don't need any other qualifications per se. So just apply, and you will know where you stand, etc. So I was like, fine, I'm not enjoying anything else as well, so I might as well just apply, as he's saying. Yeah, so you don't need a master's, especially in US. US, the minimum requirement for any PhD program entrance is 16 years of education, which optometry qualifies for. If you're just a BSc in science or something, it's 12 years plus 3. So that does not qualify because it's 15 years of education. So you might want to go ahead and finish like masters or something. But optometry in India, if you've done like a proper bachelor's degree, it's considered as a 4-year education, even though I know like the last year is internship, but it's still education. So yeah, it qualifies you for PhD application in the US in most places.
Oh, that actually is a very great insight because I know many people feel for PhD or master's is mandatory and they might just not apply,
Yeah, that might.
thinking that
Yeah.
this is a requirement. I have to study 2 years for master's and only then I'll qualify. So I think this was great. Even I wasn't sure, to be honest. I'm like, oh, you did your PhD without your master. So I made sure I asked this question when we go live. So this is great. This is great to know.
In US, that's
So
not the case. It might be in other countries, depending on
mhm,
university, but in US, I know for sure. Even in Canada, I'm not very sure, but most likely you don't need a master's. They expect to
right,
come in like a sort of a blank slate, so they can mold you the way they do research. Because what I see
got it.
from people over here is when people come with a lot of experience, it's just hard for them to unlearn and relearn new things. So they prefer people who don't have extensive experience.
Got it. Perfect. So, as we started talking about it, I know everybody is having questions about like, what's the process? Do you need GRE and C? So, when you say about application, let's directly dive into your process of application. And please note, everyone, this is only pertaining to United States for now. That's where we are talking about. We don't know if things would be different or similar in other countries. So, yeah, if you can share what was your application process here.
So before I start answering this one, application process changes each year. Like the small minimal requirements will keep changing and each university goes on updating. So you want to find out what is happening for your year because my information is say 4 or 5 years old. But in general, the idea is that applications will open sometime around August and they close around December, Jan. Each university will have a different deadline.
Keyur, 1 second, sorry to interrupt. Your voice actually went low, your volume. I don't know if you kept your hand on it.
Is
Yeah.
is it better now?
Yes, it is so much better. Yeah. Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead. You were saying that the application is around August to December, you said, right?
yeah.
In between
So
that.
applications open in August and they close around December or Jan. Each university will have a little bit of a different deadline, and one of the few things that you need for sure is you need to have like your CV, which is different from a resume, and they are very particular about getting a CV. So find out what's the difference and make sure you write a CV and not a resume. Resume for them is 1 or 2 pages, which is like a short brief intro of what your skills are. And the understanding over here is resume is for an industry job where thousands of students apply, so that they get a quick idea of what you are about, and that's it. They don't have time to look into it. But for PhD particularly, you want to send in a CV, which is a detailed explanation of all the things you have done. So you have to write like your paper titles or poster titles and everything in detail. And at that level, they're expecting about 3 pages minimum to start with. People have longer CVs, but I had to stretch mine to get to 3 pages, to be honest. So yeah, so they are expecting a CV, which a lot of people don't understand the difference and submit it the wrong way. Then most schools still require a GRE, which is your graduate record examination, which is basically uh, 12th or 13th standard English and math. So they call it quantitatives and verbal. But a lot of schools are doing away with it because strong research has shown that your score in GRE does not correlate whatsoever to your success in PhD. So you could have an excellent GRE score, but you could not be very successful in PhD. So UAB, the year after I applied, they stopped requiring GRE. So they don't require GRE at all. Of course, if you do give the exam for some other school and you have good scores, I would recommend you go ahead and submit it. But if you feel like your scores are not competitive enough for the school, then don't bother. TOEFL would be required. Some schools accept IELTS, but you again have to check their guidelines each year. They keep changing. But TOEFL is like your English language requirement, whether you know good enough English, etc. And for that, I would recommend getting like a decent score. It doesn't have to be like super high, but anything above like 100, 105 or something that is acceptable. Um, and then apart from that, you will need letters of recommendation. So 3 letters of recommendation are required from most places, and those are probably the most important aspect of your application. Once your application gets to someone's desk, yeah, your scores and your percentages, or GPA as they call it over here, that will determine whether people are going to bother reading it or not. But most likely, if you're applying, your GPA and all is decent. It's anything above 3.0 is acceptable, which in Indian terms would translate to anything above 65 or 75%. And you have to get it evaluated for some universities by World Education Services. It's called WES evaluation. Probably the most expensive part of the application, costs around $200. And that will give you what the conversion is into a GPA and of your grades and everything. And if you have about 3.0, then you are in. But after you're in, the thing that they stress most upon is your letters of recommendation. And this is a very tricky part. This is where most applications, in my opinion, fail. And I say most applications because I was on the admissions committee for UAB last year, and I got to see the process, like internally, how they review and everything. And this is where they stress the most, especially for Indian students. Seeing the sort of like letters of recommendation I have seen, I would recommend going through the letter of recommendation yourself before it gets submitted. So whoever you are asking, make sure that you get to have a look at it before it gets submitted, to see that just say all the facts are correct or not. Like I just want to make sure. It is not important that someone of a high position, or your dean, or the best known optometrist in the country writes you a letter. What is more important is what they write. Their position might not be that great. Of course, you can't have, oh, like, my friend wrote and my mom wrote and something like that. You need to have someone who has taught you or mentored you or knows you in your research abilities. But at the same time, it is more important as what they write. You need to have a decent length. Their story should, say something about you as to what are your skills, etc. At least a one page, because I saw some letters this year that were like 3 lines, and I was like, this is a good student. I taught the student in this course, and I would highly recommend the student in your program. I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything about the student. So you need to have like all these points as to what the student is good at, or how they have progressed and all of that. You need to be able to tell that story through your letters of recommendation, and the same story needs to be told through your statement of purpose, which is the second most crucial piece, or the only piece that you have under control, or the only thing that you can do anything about during the application. Statement of purpose is like an essay. Most schools will have strict guidelines as to how long it can be. 1 to 2 pages is the maximum length, so somewhere between 500 to 800 words. And in that, you want to be able to tell your story as to your motivation for doing research, how you came about to it, or what you are expecting. Some people, and if you're sure, or if you have an area of expertise, like you've done some research in some field, specify it in that. And also specify if you are interested in a university to work with someone, like you do this work, and at that university you can just Google and see who's doing that work, and just specify their name, that this is someone you might be highly interested with, etc. This shows that you have done your background, and you just didn't wake up one day and decided to submit the application. So you've done your thorough work, due diligence, and you are ready to do all of this work. So those are some of the key important things that all applications will require. Apart from that, there might be like minor other expectations that you'll have to fill in a form about your name, address, and all of those basics. But these are the strong few things that you have to really work on.
Right. So talking about this statement of purpose and the recommendation letters and stuff, I know that sometimes, especially with letter of recommendation, people, another mistake that I've seen, I don't know if you have encountered it, that sometimes you go to a mentor or someone you want them to write a recommendation letter, and they don't write it, and you end up writing it for them and asking them to sign and stuff, right? Is that something recommended? Because somewhere I feel maybe it would be helpful in terms of giving them bullets or pointers of what you want to be included. But at the same time, it somewhere is evident that you are writing it if you're writing like 3 formats of it, right? Because everybody has a different way of writing. You as much as you would try, it will come across that you have probably written all 3 letters and you're just changing the words.
That is correct. But yeah, so your point is, I completely agree, and I encourage over here. Once I got here, especially like deans of schools and all, they get a lot of requests, and if they were to write everyone's letter, it's impossible. They would never get anything else done. So definitely pointers when you can give, or if not, like sometimes over here also, when I ask someone, they are like, "Oh, sure, write the letter, and I'll edit it on that." So definitely, I would, if of course you trust the advisor and all of that, and they have the time, sure, let them write it for you. If not, then definitely give them pointers. If they are not available for that, then write the letter. And yeah, I know it's just acquired skill to make sure that all 3 letters sound different, or all of that. That takes a lot of work. One of the things I would suggest is having someone else read through it and edit it in a way that they think that it would be right. And for sure, over here, people are not stupid. One of the things I feel like super embarrassing is when it's a cookie cutter letter of recommendation, which is some agency or someone else has written, and you can clearly see that it's got nothing to do with the student. It's like, the student is good at this and this and this, and it's just a bland statement. So what I think makes a difference is they are looking for your experiences. And if you are asking someone to write a letter, that means you have spent some time with them. and they have mentored you on one-on-one. So you need to be able to show those one-on-one interactions in the letter, which is what makes the difference, even though the writing style might be very similar. So like one of the things I wrote is in the Lotus lobby area, where the water cooler is basically for us. I used to have a lot of discussions with Dr. Vishwa sitting right there in the lobby area because classroom was always packed and, there's things going on in the staff room, etc. So you should just sit there and discuss a lot of times. And so that is something I wrote in my letter of this something I wrote in my statement of purpose, and he co-referenced it in his letter of recommendation. That he's super interested or curious about things, and whenever he has a question, he will just grab me and find me in the lobby, and we will discuss about it, etc. So those kind of one-on-one experiences is what's going to make each letter individual, because you cannot have same experiences with everyone. So make sure you emphasize on those and make sure that that is something that is highlighted.
Right. And I think I really liked one very important thing that you mentioned is it is very important to make sure that you're asking others to read for you.
Yep.
It could be letter of recommendation, it could be statement of purpose. As amazing writer as you could be, just it's always better to have like multiple people scan it and review it for you before you submit it.
And it's important, I think, that also, your story is coherent. By story being coherent, I mean to say, if you are writing in your statement of purpose, it's again, you're trying to sell yourself. It's a marketing tool that why am I so great? Why should I, you read my application. So you're putting down a story as to, what you have done or how you have progressed, etc., etc. Say you are writing about, I did 2 researches while I was at Lotus. One was for Silmo Paris and one was for my capstone project. If you're writing like 2 paragraphs in your statement of purpose about one research project, you want to make sure your letters of recommendation reflect that. It shouldn't be you write about one thing and the recommender is writing about the completely different thing. And then the reviewer on this end is like, wait, are these 2 different people or the same person? So make sure like whatever points you are stating also gets stated in the recommendation letter. If you are, say, hardworking, then the recommender should also say something along those lines. So what I did, and which I feel is a very good idea, is to get your statement of purpose thoroughly done very early. And then if the recommender, you send the statement of purpose and also the bullets and state, okay, so this was our experience. Like, I went wrong over here, and then you remember you corrected me on this, and I learned so quickly. So you write that experience and you write hyphen perseverance or something like that. So when the recommender is writing, they have a lot of students. If they are any good at their job, they'll have at least a few students to write recommendation letter for or whatever. So they will remember of that experience and write accordingly. And if they are not writing, you think of it that way and write accordingly. So then I can see, so yeah, in the statement of purpose and the letter of recommendation, they are the same.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that if they won't remember everything, they don't have time. First of all, they're writing it for you, which is the kind of like, taking away not more, but at least 30 to 45 minutes of their day, which is important. And if they're doing it, you should aid them with whatever tools, resources you can, because it's for yourself. So you need to spend time. Perfect. So going on a few questions which are out there. For GRE, there are many schools where you need GRE. There are many schools you might be able to skip GRE. So kindly check into each school's application process. But there are schools that exist which don't need a GRE. The question was about masters. No, okay, you confirmed you don't need masters for PhD. So yes, you can keep applying. I have another interesting question from Saili, where she said, give me 1 second. Hold on. My Instagram decided to go slow. Can you see the questions from, okay, I got that. It says about, where can you do your PhD from? Is it, what is the best place for doing PhD out in US? Is it optometry school or eye hospitals? Do you have any?
So personally, I don't know of any eye hospitals that have PhD programs in vision sciences. All I know of are optometry schools in some sense or the other. So I believe there are 7 universities currently within US that provide PhDs, and they will have, and they are associated with an optometry school, so they will have an eye hospital or sort of similar setup somewhere in the vicinity. Again, PhD, where you want to do is highly dependent on what you want to do. If you are an open slate and you're like, whoever will accept me, sure, apply everywhere. Try and cater to each university a little bit, but each university, I believe, has some strengths. And there are more advisors or faculty members who are willing to take you in that area. Like UAB particularly is known for posterior segment or retina kind of work, diabetic retinopathy and all of that. We have so many people over here who do such an excellent job over here about that. So if you're applying or if you're interested in that area, UAB would be a great choice. Houston, on the contrary, is more into clinical research. Myopia, like if I were to go back and look at it retrospectively, an ideal university for me would have been Houston because they do a lot of clinical myopia. Berkeley does a lot of basic science in myopia, or at least this is the ones that I know of. Indiana, I know for sure they do a lot in optics. I think even their PhD is on physiology and optics or something that is not called vision science. And again, each university will have its own strength. So you look at their faculty profile and see which faculty is in what area. At UAB, we have dry eye groups, which are very strong. So those are the places you want to go. Of course, I didn't know all of this before applying. So I applied to all universities. I was like, whoever wants to accept me, I'll go happily. But again, having said that, you don't want to finalize on your topic and everything. It's not like Australia or UK wherein you come in with a topic or a master's. You want to be able to be flexible once you get here. So yeah, so it doesn't matter if you can find a place that has a PhD program. Doesn't matter whether it's an associated hospital or not. Just depends on what you are interested in and what they are willing to offer. UAB has I think UAB in the vicinity has like 11 or 12 hospitals, but probably I'm the only one so far doing any clinical research currently, at least. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you have hospital access or not. And if you have clinical background, doesn't mean you have to do clinical research. That's why you are starting as a blank slate, because you could come here, learn about basic sciences and, animal research or whatever there is to learn, and you might get interested and you can pursue down that path. And it's a skill because now you know basics of optometry and you also know how to do basic science. So my initial project was in guinea pigs, and that is one of the jobs I'm applying for, which actually requires a lot of guinea pig skills. So you measure like refraction and A scan on guinea pigs. I have some experience, so I'm like, sure. So yeah, don't be limited to, I can only go to an optometry school or anything like that. If that's a PhD program and you are interested, go apply for it. Again, don't be limited to vision science. If you are someone who is interested in neuro or some of that, so apply for PhDs in neuroscience. Those are more challenging from what I've been told. But yeah, you are not limited by just, since you are optometrist, vision science is not the only place where you can apply. And they appreciate people from different fields because that brings in a lot of diversity and a different perspective. So probably you might have better chances in a different program than just vision science.
Got it. And I think this is interesting, just because you said how it is different in, say, Australia and UK versus US, where you don't really have to go in with a topic, or you don't really need to have that clarity that, yes, I want to do this and this is my specialty or my area of interest. It lets you explore and then decide. So talking about exploration, can you tell me, like, what is the program process? Like, okay, you got accepted, what happens after that?
So generally, this is how it's set up. You get accepted. Again, UAB has changed drastically since I got in. But currently how UAB goes, I'll explain, and in general that will give you a gist. So UAB currently the first semester, so you will come in sometime in August. That's when most programs start. If you can come in early, I would recommend come in early, because when I came here, I realized I was sitting at home twiddling my thumbs from May to August, waiting for the date to arrive. But I could have come here and started getting some experience, etc. And most universities have that option. So if you can come in, reach out once you're accepted, speak to your dean or whatever, and try and see if that is possible. If not, you will come in August and you will have a lot of classes to take. Simultaneously, UAB currently doesn't require you to start lab rotations, but most places will require to start lab rotation. What does lab rotation mean is you go through their list of faculties and you pick an advisor. You're like, okay, this is the something I'm interested in, or this is a person I want to work with, etc., etc. And you will work in their lab for 8, 10, 12 weeks. Each university will have its own different length. And the advisor is then figuring out how you are as a person, and you have to choose how the lab and the advisor is as a person. And you both can agree that, okay, you are like, I want to join this person's lab, and that advisor also has to accept you. And then you finally find a home. Generally, most students end up doing 2 to 3 lab rotations just to get a variety of little bit hands-on experiences. And also sometimes it takes a while to figure out where you want to be. And that is not the end of the world. If you don't figure out by the third lab rotation, doesn't mean you get kicked out or something like that. I have seen students who have done 7 lab rotations as well. It's just you are spending a lot more time, and the program is also in a rush to get you somewhere, like get you a home, because new students are coming in simultaneously. So while you're doing all this lab rotation work, you will have some sort of classes, which can be considered, it's not equivalent to, you do not get a degree of master's, but it is very similar to having master's classes. So they'll do basic sciences, anatomy, physiology, all of that, skills, etc. But you do not get a master's once you're done with those classes. I did not get any master's. So a lot of that is a misconception. So those would be your first 1.5 to 2 years. Once you've finalized your lab in first year or so, you'll start working in the lab, and you will end up on a final PhD project. And once you decide on the PhD project, each school has a different entry level to candidacy. After that, the next step is PhD candidacy. If you were to set a bar as to where would a master's end, it would be at candidacy, for example. So that's around the first 2 years. You're done with all your classes. You know what you're going to do, and then all you have to do is research until you graduate. PhD candidacy, every school has very varied requirements. Some schools have 8-10 hour long exams, theory, and I don't know, oral exams and all of that. UAB is completely different. We just write our research proposal, and we defend our proposal for an hour, and that's pretty much all of it. So yeah, that I would not comment on a lot, but yeah, that's something you'll figure out once you get there. And after that, you start your research, and God forbid COVID happens again in your time, you will be able to finish your research in time and defend your thesis and graduate. So that's the general process like.
Got it. So I think this is interesting how I think one very important thing which you mentioned was you do into rotation and you decide what you like and what you don't like. Because I feel there is somewhere again a misconception, I would say, because of the background that we come from and the way we have been trained and taught. You come with a half of the things, or I would say most of the things are spoon-fed, and there is a pattern. This is how it will work. But it's very different when we study in US. They let you explore. They let you decide what works for both of us. So you as a student or an applicant also has a say in, I don't like this, or I don't want to work with you. I want to work on something else or with someone else. So I think that is, as liberating as it is, it could sometimes be confusing as well, because now you suddenly have to own your decision. Versus someone telling you this is it, like just do it and follow. So yes, so we prepare. There are good and bad, both of sides of it, but you don't have to, you're not kid anymore. You are at a PhD level. You're making your own decision and setting your own career path. So I think that's a great and important insight there.
Let me tell you this. It's not all a bed of roses. It can't be like, oh, I want this person and, they are waiting for you to join. There are a lot of factors. They have to have a project going, or, you have to have skills that are necessary in that area. Most of the time they'll be willing to train, but depends if they have time, etc. They have money or not. Money is the biggest factor, because the lab will be the one that is mostly funding you. It shouldn't be a hindrance. Like UAB, if money is the problem, the program funds. That's how mine worked, because my advisor did not have the funds. I'm his first student, Dr. Parker's first student. So it was not like a straightforward path. So the program is funding, etc. Things do work out, but I'm not saying, oh, as soon as you see one person, you like them, it's just like, oh yeah, perfect, joins up. No.
Yeah, and as you said, at least this is what is very good here as well, that there are ways you can talk to
Yep.
people, you can talk to admins, and this is what I highly recommend everyone to do is even from your application process,
Yes.
if you have any questions, talk to the faculties, talk to the admin, department, send them emails even if it means like, asking same question 10 times. They are very patient and they respond to everything. So
Yes.
talk to people. That is the biggest key to find your way and do find the right path.
Biggest thing I've learned is ask for help. Don't be shy, be annoying, be perseverant. You have to send 50 emails, send 50 emails. Ask for help. People are busy. It's not that they don't want to help. People are busy. Sometimes they forget. Sometimes they have something else going on. Just a gentle reminder every week, every 2-3 days, anywhere in science, I would say that is one thing you have to keep in mind. Ask for help and be
Right.
perseverant. Like just keep chasing until you hear back.
Right. Perfect. So I'm going to take a few questions before I go into my next question. So I saw Fakhruddin asking, okay, what is better, doing an OD or a PhD?
Depends what you want to do after you graduate. Money wise, if you're looking, I would say, again, depends. So it depends. OD will give you clinical licensing. So you will be able to do an optometrist job at a higher level because over here, the scope of practice is much larger in US. So that will give you the clinical license. A PhD will give you research skills. A PhD, I would say, opens a huge pathway. You can now go into industry and, you in PhD, you don't, apart from the degree, you earn skills. So you can communicate well, you can write well, you can perform certain skills in the lab well, etc., etc. So that opens a huge pathway. Having said that, OD in US is if you have that kind of money, I wouldn't suggest you come to US because it's very, very expensive. In general, the price range is from like 150 to 200K USD, which is around, I don't know, 1 crore to 1.5 crore in Indian rupees. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, if you have that kind of money lying around in India, just sit there and enjoy. Why bother all this? But yeah, that's the general price range. But having said that, again, if this is something you're very passionate about, there are ways, and we'll probably get to it in the end. That's something I'm looking forward to myself. But yeah, that's the difference depending on what you want to do. I feel getting into an OD program directly from India is much more challenging because one, they do not understand what optometry is in India, and two, it's very hard to bridge the gap because over here no one, like very few people are doing that. So now slowly people are understanding, oh, this is possible. Oh, they know what optometry is or they have these skills. The blanket statement over here is optometrist job, just no refraction back home, which is not true. We do a lot more than just refraction. So yeah, it's a uphill battle, but if that is what you're interested in, go for it. Of course, considering you have the financial backing, because money is something that the government or the school does not sponsor for clinical programs, at least.
Right.
So yeah, for me, it was a clear-cut decision to go for research. One, because of interest, and two, because there was no way I would have been able to pay for OD.
Yeah. So another thing another question someone has is publication mandatory to get into a PhD program?
It is not mandatory. I can tell that with confidence because I had 0 publications when I got into the program. However, having publications is the currency. It's the key. If you have publications, nothing like it. That is going to put you far above everyone else. Also, not saying one of the things which is sad, but one of the things that I saw in the application process over here is that they segregate publications based on international journals versus like local journals. So you want to get a publication in international journals like Optometry and Vision Science, Contact Lens and Anterior Eye, or Physiological Optics, and one of those. That really sets you apart. Like if you have publications, what they are looking for in the application is, do you know what research is like? And do they think you will be able to succeed or finish the program? How can you prove that? By showing, oh yeah, I have already published something. So first author publications, of course, if you're the 7th or 8th author in a 20 author title paper, that is not going to count. But if you have a first author publication, it would be hard for anyone to reject you at that point.
Right.
Yeah, publications not mandatory. I had zero. Sometimes I feel I was the dumbest kid to apply, but at the same time, saying that research is more important. Just somehow show them abstracts. Put down any abstracts you have, local, international, anything. So to show that you are aware of the research process and you have
Right.
some exposure to it.
Right. And when you said about, you had mentioned, and I'm going back to one of the questions which is there in the comments, you said you don't need money to apply for PhD. It's not expensive, right? I mean, in sense, of course, there's an application process, but when you compare to like an OD program or something, you don't really need that kind of money. But someone did mention or ask like, what is a scholarship process? So I feel there is still few questions in terms of the financial part of PhD. If you can, discuss more about that.
So, of course, your application is going to cost, if you have to do VS evaluation, is $200. Depending on university, I think UAB is like $50 for application, but I remember Berkeley being $120. These numbers change every year, so don't quote me on any of those. You need to look out and find out and some of them are free as well. I remember some of them just being you apply. You don't have to pay anything at all. Apart from that, GRE is going to cost you certain amount, and TOEFL will cost you certain amount. I don't know what it costs right now. But I'm taking the whole process through. Once you send an applications, you get your interview. Interview is virtual if you are in India, especially. They would fly you in if you are in US, but most of us aren't. So that is free, like Zoom, basically. And after that, you would have to pay for your visa out of your pocket. I believe currently it stands at around $200, and your passport and all of that, and your airfare. If they send you a position, all I can say confidently that if they accept you into the program, all PhD programs in US are funded for vision science at least. So if they accept you, that means you get a stipend and a scholarship and all that fancy stuff. Whatever you want to put their name, everyone has a different way of calling it. And some people got, like I had a Blazer fellowship, and don't worry into the details of what the title is, but they will give you enough money to survive in that city per month on a monthly basis. If you live with roommates or something like that, you can easily save up a lot of money. And also they will, well, I shouldn't quote this, but at least at UAB, your medical expenses are covered. So you have in health insurance or not. And that is, in India, we don't see it as a big thing, but in US, that is the most expensive thing if you have to get any health stuff.
If you don't have a medical insurance in US, don't even enter, don't even step.
Don't even consider coming here. So they will provide with that, and they will provide with all your tuition. So any classes and all that you take, that is covered. At UAB, at least the policies, I was free to study whatever I wanted, as long as they thought it would help me. So I have taken a bunch of classes from leadership all the way to understanding how to do better arts in science, so better drawing in science, for understanding how to do better figures, etc. So yeah, each university has its own policy. Once you get there, but they will cover all your tuition expenses. So what I would say is you need to have enough money all the way until you can get yourself an air ticket, a one-way air ticket from India to US. After that, I think you're pretty much covered.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. So you don't really have to go through the hassle of really applying for scholarships and knowing of making sure that will I be able to pay the fee or
PhD
the tuition fee and things.
Applicants, like, you are considered for a scholarship. They won't get you here unless they can pay you here. At least in vision science, that's the case.
Got it. I think that's great. I hope we've answered that question. If anything, any other thing that you'll have around this, do drop in a question and I'll try to take that and ask you about it. Now, when we talk about, okay, you got into PhD, it's great, you liked it, but what is a student life? Let's go into the reality of it. I know you just mentioned it's your weekend and your weekend plan is doing dishes, doing your laundry, cooking so that you can feed yourself for the next 1 week. That is a reality, guys. It's not all beautiful. Yes, he might post images of beautiful fall colors outside, but inside he is probably vacuuming and doing dishes.
Okay. One, do not look at my Insta and think that's what my life is. That is, I'll be honest, that is completely fake. I take these pictures once in a month or once in every 2-3 months, and they are spread out over the time because a lot of friends in India, like, you don't post anything. And trust me, I don't even post actually. These are all set up on a Hootsuite account and they automatically post after a certain time. That's how busy things can get. Yeah, so I would say in research and in PhD, it's a cycle, or not a cycle, but it has its ups and downs. Like right now, I'm a little more free because the semester is ended. Though I'm not taking any classes, it frees up some time for my advisor, so I'm doing fewer things on that end. It frees up a lot of other activities that I do on campus, like, students are going home or whatever, so there's some extra time that way. But during the semester also, it cycles. Like fall, as soon as it starts, everything picks up. There are a bunch of deadlines for grants or scholarships or etc. And then that's the time I see patients, mostly because students are on campus. And then it dips down during holidays, then again it will pick up. So it's not all crazy hassle and you don't get any holidays and you're going to die working. That's not how bad it is. At the same time, it can get very difficult. A typical day, and it depends vastly on what lab you choose. My lab, like my advisor, doesn't care when I do the work, as long as I do the work. I could he would be okay if I sat in India for 6 months, but I still kept doing the work somehow. So and some labs I know, they are very typical about, like, why are you not here by 9:05? We're supposed to be here at 9 a.m. and you cannot leave before 5 p.m. Some labs expect you to be there at 6 a.m. and not leave before 10 p.m. Uh, it's all very varied on what lab you choose. Again, what you want to get out of your PhD. And that also depends on school. Like I have certain friends who are so much into like policy making and student government, etc., that they spend like half of their PhD just doing that. And those are the skills they're acquiring. That girl I know for sure, whom I'm talking about, she will end up into some sort of like policy or US government position, etc. in the end. I am more into leadership, and also I take a lot of those positions. I'm the vice president, been for the past 3 years, I believe, for the graduate student government. So it's a body of 7,000 students, and we have a budget of $100,000 per year to manage all of that. So yeah, I do a lot of that, and my advisor encourages it. He's like, those are skills you need. And now retrospectively, I'm like, I'm so happy I did it. Some labs just want to focus you on the work. So it depends what you are here for and what you want to get out of it. Of course, the more PhD is a double-edged sword. There is no limit to how much you want to work, because the more you work, the more publications, the more experience, and more things you will get out of your PhD. And you have 4 or 5 years of free education, and you can take, like, I was taking like 16, 18 credits per semester when I started, and then my admin was like, you're consuming funds worth of 2 students, we can't allow you to do that. But having said that, coming from India, I felt like, oh, there are no opportunities there, and there are so many opportunities, grab onto everything. But that was the wrong approach. Try and focus on things you want to achieve. There are opportunities in every area and field. So my day starts generally around 5 or 6. I will do some meditation, get breakfast. After that, I'll start working on emails. I did not realize how bad emails can get until I got here. Like, it takes an hour or two to just get through emails. And then around 9, I will either start working on my project currently. And if you are a first year, you probably have some classes at that point. Post classes, you will go into the lab. I would say, for my case, I would be seeing a patient for my research. Then all of that ends, like, you have a lunch hour or so, and I take my lunch wherever possible. I'm not very specific. But some people are specific, like 12 to 1, I won't do anything. So sure. And then after that, like, I see patients, maybe by 5-ish, it winds off. On a general basis, ideally, I would like to go to the gym. It doesn't happen every day. Sometimes doesn't happen for a month. But on an ideal basis, I would like to go work out or something like that. And then by 7-ish, I'm done with that. Come home, cook or something, because at that point there's a bunch of cleaning of vessels and cooking and all that stuff, nice happy stuff which your moms are doing currently and you'll have to do once you're here. And yeah, the day ends with me either trying to catch up on some other work for the next day, or you have to study for an exam or something like that in your first, second year, or me trying to read some books or doing some other leadership activities and all. And in between of this, you can sprinkle like, award lectures, or, there are some people attending over here or visiting. So you get to meet those people, or there are some lectures or lunches or meetings or something or the other. So yeah, those kind of things. On the weekends, generally, there are a lot of activities going on. While doing this, I'm missing one of them. So we have a science center, and this graduate student government does a community service activity um, that we can go and help over there, and as a perk of helping that place, we get to enjoy the place for the rest of the day for free. So yeah, those kind of things are always there. Most of the weekend definitely goes in trying to keep up, like, cleaning the room, doing laundry, dishes, all of that. And yeah, the whatever remaining time is there, we either try to binge Netflix or try and get some photos so I can keep posting. But yeah, that's what the general life is like. You do get holidays. UAB is very annoying in that sense. I would say they consider us employees when it comes to holidays. So officially, I'm only given, like, I think 4 or 5 holidays a year. But apart from that, there's always a discussion with your advisor, and you can get like 2-3 weeks off a year to go home if you want. What I did was like, hey, I'm not going to go home for the next 2 years. So I'm going to take 6 weeks off when I go home, because I feel like going home, jet lag and everything, it just takes 1 week away as it is. So yeah, those kind of discussions are all independent and depends on your advisor. If you're getting married, sure, I'm sure they'll be okay with you going for a month. But yeah, so.
Yeah, so I really like how you describe your entire student life. Mainly, it is more of work. Plus, it also gives you a personal time. It's not just work, and like you will die working because you're doing PhD.
Yeah,
No,
at
it's not.
UAB, mental health is very important, and most schools it is. In US, mental health has become the new hot trending topic, and so yeah, personal care, personal time, very very important. I'll be honest, I had a burnout early in my PhD, and it's not advisable. Sure, you think you are doing a lot more and you're productive, but that burnout will take like a month or two away in the end, so it's not worth it. Don't go for it. It's okay if you can't write a paper, or it's okay if you can't submit a fellowship. That's not worth it. So yeah, taking personal time is very important, and make sure you guard and protect that time. I know some students who have like, I'm not going to answer any emails after 5 p.m. on Friday, like until Monday morning 9 a.m. Even if my project is on fire, I don't care. So yeah, you set your boundaries and make sure people understand, your advisor understands that. So yeah.
I think that's very important, and it is kind of appreciated and accepted in US, is what I've seen more compared to coming from India, where people do have a very distinct work and life. Like they don't mix everything like we do. We are always on the go. We're
Yeah.
always available. That is not considered to be a good thing, because they feel you are not contributing 100% in either of it,
Yeah.
not in your personal life or yourself and work. So as difficult, but that doesn't mean you take it for granted and don't work. So
Yeah.
you need to find a sweet spot there. We have like a last question before we end up this session. What next? I know we all feel, okay, I've got your PhD. Okay, is there end of what you're trying to do, or what's next?
So I'll tell, there are a lot of options. It's not the end of the world. Of course, I think if you're planning to stay in the US, the challenge is more like making sure you can keep your visa rolling, because getting green card in US is like forever, unless you get married to someone who's a citizen. That works out very well, but getting a green card is a challenge. But yeah, so you want to keep your visa rolling, and that's a game that gets changed with every presidency, I feel. In my case, I'm looking to go to optometry school. Currently, there are 7 optometry schools in the US that offer some sort of bridging program. So I have an optometry from India, and then they will give me 1 or 2 years of study over here, and I get my OD. I want to do that primarily because my research is clinical, and if I were to see independent patients for my research, I would need a licensing. Otherwise, I would always be dependent on someone who has that.
Right.
But also, having said that, there are other jobs that you can apply for, like companies, multinationals. Your advisor is the one who will connect you with it, and you just don't have like one person or two people will be your primary advisor, but you have a group of mentors, like a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have 5 or 6 of them who have expertise in some area or the other, and they can connect you with these people in the industry and all, and you can apply for that. A lot of students go the postdoc route, which I believe is the least paying, if I'm all honest. Of course, more paying than a PhD, but it's the least paying. But at the same time, if you are planning a research and a faculty career, it's the most ideal. So a lot of students would go do a postdoc for a year, for 2 years, 4 years. Some people just love that job and keep doing that. Some people switch, jump. It's becoming more and more fluid. You could be in academia and join industry, and vice
Right.
versa. Of course, I'm not saying it's easy, but more and more it's being accepted that it's okay to switch over. So yeah, these are some of the options that I have seen or I would consider. OD programs are getting easier, and if you've not applied yet, by the time you finish your PhD, I think getting into an OD program would be way easier. I did not know how it would happen for my time, but I'm pretty confident I can end up in one once I'm done. But yeah, these are the few options. It's not like, oh, there are no jobs in the US and you will have to go back to India. I know people who have gone back to India. It's not the end of the world. You have a lot of them at LVPI and they're doing excellent work.
Right.
But at the same time, you are not, PhD is a skill, you are not limited by country. I know people go to Australia after getting this PhD because now they have a research skill set which is applicable wherever you want to go. So yeah, there are lots and lots of options. Of course, you have to be a strong candidate and you have to apply. You can't be like, oh, people will be begging for me to join. I hope that happens to you, but that is not the case most likely. But yeah, after that, you have multiple options. You can join pharma companies, depending on your area of expertise, or you can join industry like J&J, or because they do a lot of dry eye contact lens. So yeah, a lot of options.
Wonderful. So I know we do have like a limitation in InstaLive, so I'm going to kind of end this quickly. I really appreciate and thank you so much for missing your weekend routine and joining us on this InstaLive. This was super helpful for all those who have joined. I hope we've answered all your questions, if not, most of your questions, if not all. And this is going to be available even later. So just follow Naughty Optometrist and you'll be able to, access this video even on the later time. So if you miss some part of it, don't worry, it's not end of the world. And you can reach out to me, or I would say even Keyur.
Yep.
He might take some time to respond, but we'll definitely respond back to you guys.
Yeah.
With that, thank you once again, Keyur, for your time. And thank you everyone for joining. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and hope you guys have a great evening and great Sunday. And I'll go get started with my weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.